What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of The Throw-In. My name is Justin. You guys are watching us on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, and I am glad to be with you guys. If you guys are tuning us in through via Facebook, welcome. Thank you. Twitter, I'm excited. Thank you guys for tuning in and making this your daily podcast, radio show, whatever you guys want to consider this. Also got to give a shout out to the people who are over there on audio streaming platforms who take us on the road and tune us in and listen to us on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Thank you guys. Appreciate it so much. Listen, I woke up this morning and, you get ready to do the show 6 a.m. I've talked to you about this before. One of the problems that we ran into was that there was supposed to be a storm headed our way. Living in northern Kentucky, we were getting ready for a winter storm. Now, what happens, at least at my location, at 5 o'clock in the morning, getting ready for a program, especially when it's cold outside, is the fact that everything is very slow. And the last thing I want to do is put on a delayed content that rolls over. It's just a crappy performance. I absolutely hate it. So what I end up doing, I woke up this morning, getting ready for a program, logged into the computer, got all my notes wild up on, and then the Wi-Fi it takes forever because it's cold outside, you guys. So that wasn't necessarily the greatest experience. I had to postpone everything. Got up, took a couple of kids to school. We didn't know until last minute that that school was still in session out here in our area. Everything up north was completely canceled for the day. I know a couple areas around here delayed school for a couple hours until the weather passed, and it didn't hit us as bad. So, but I had to get a couple of things done this morning, and that's why this is a recording. It's gonna be uploaded today. I want to stay on top of it, you guys. The difference from me doing a recording to doing live is that if it's not early enough in the morning, I kind of feel like, hey, listen, you guys, I got to change some stuff. I got to get if I'm doing it anytime in the afternoon, it's going to be a recording. So I apologize, but the fact of the matter is the consistency that we get ready to do a show 2 hours for you guys today, like our normal program. And we will try again tomorrow morning to do a show at 6 o'clock. But, it was also one of those days where you didn't have a lot going on the night before. With football down to 2 games, and you're down to the 49ers and Eagles on Sunday, as well as the Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs, there isn't a lot of sports to be talked about early on. I mean, there is stuff that is coming ahead of us that we will talk and get ready, and discuss and talk about. But right now, we're kind of sitting in the cross mix. And when it's baseball, we're waiting for spring training, and there's some conversation about that. Some football, other than the AFC, NFC conference championships, that's the only thing that we're waiting for. We could discuss a little possibility, some possibilities about trade rumors and start getting ready to the mock draft. But I kind of, want to hold off as much as possible for that, because that's going to be a big conversation in just a few weeks. You think about 3 weeks where we could start actually getting ourselves nosediving into the NFL offseason. Um, so a lot of conversation that gets put to a halt. WWE professional wrestling. Yeah, you got AEW Dynamite tonight, and we'll kick things off here in just a moment with that. But you also got WWE Raw, and I felt really confident yesterday morning that when I talked about Monday Night Raw and its 30th anniversary, that I kind of really did get a lot of the key content in. So there's a few more things that I'm trying to save for the right time. I don't want to rush talking about those subjects, but we still are getting ourselves ready for the Royal Rumble, which is coming up this Saturday. So we do have stuff to talk about, but at the same time, I was kind of scratching my head last night trying to, all right, do I have enough information to cover 2 hours worth of this program? So we're going to give it a shot. We'll see how we do. Maybe we'll win. Maybe we'll not. Hopefully, maybe next year I'm going to start talking about what I'm watching on TV. Uh, so, all right. Well, the big thing, though, that's coming out of, the world of sports and especially coming in tonight is that you got AEW Dynamite. AEW Dynamite tonight, 8 p.m., available on TBS. Gonna be a big show. A very big match card here. Well, just mentioning it. I don't normally promote a lot of this stuff at the beginning of the program, but you got Jungle Boy and Hook, Ethan Page and Matt Hardy, taking on Ethan Page and Matt Hardy there. Dr. Britt Baker taking on Ruby Soho and Tony Storm. You got Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara taking on Ricky Starks and Austin Andretti. Then you also have the Guns and the acclaimed. Sorry, messing up early on already. In the Family Meditation with Billy Gunn. Two things. Okay, you also got another open challenge match with Darby Allin and Buddy Matthews for the TNT Championship. That will be aired tonight. A couple of things we'll talk about here. Bryan Danielson continues his road to getting to MJF and the AEW World Champion. We'll talk about some of that as he takes on Brian Cage. But the big news coming out of tonight has to be finally we will be seeing the Mark Briscoe, currently one half of Ring of Honor's World Tag Team Champion, taking on Jay Lethal in a celebratory style matchup to celebrate and honor not Jay Briscoe, Mark Briscoe. I'm all over the place. Sorry. um Trust me, the first segments always go this way. Mark Briscoe, one half of Ring of Honor's tag team champion, will take on Jay Lethal tonight in a celebratory match in honorary of Jay Briscoe, who passed away last week in a car accident. One of those biggest, big tragedy that happened, in the world of professional wrestling. It's unfortunate. AEW didn't necessarily um, take care of, do any really big honorary stuff for Jay. And I think tonight really solidifies the moment to properly honor Jay Briscoe in the sense of this match. Even Universal Studios has agreed to lift the band of the Briscoes on AEW to be able to allow this match to take place. And there's maybe a conversation of, okay, well, how come this match couldn't have been on Ring of Honor and maybe it should have been on Ring of Honor? Way I see this match is being on AEW Dynamite is that this is got the brother versus best friend of the late great Jay Briscoe, and you have it on national television where everyone can see. Yes, it also makes sense to have this match on Ring of Honor, but Ring of Honor is not televised. Ring of Honor um is not given to everyone who wants to watch it. So to be able to display this match um on live television tonight, I think goes the extra step of honoring Jay Briscoe. The other thing that I'm also seeing apart this, which is probably just the most devastating thing out of everything, out of it all, is that they're finally releasing this ban on the Briscoes, which means that Mark can go on and face, compete in AEW, and you kind of sit back and like, why just now? Does it really have to come to the point where somebody has to, pass away, sacrifice their life, die in order to get, this recognition? The Briscoes are one of the most decorative tag team fractions in the world in this generation. Okay, hands down. And that, a lot of the things that, dream matches that we wish could have happened, things like the Briscoes taking on the Usos, the Briscoes taking on the Young Bucks on AEW. There was a lot of things that we did not get to see from the Briscoes because of the restrictions that they had. I, want to contend that, I missed a lot of great matches coming out of the Briscoes. So tonight is that time where we could join together, enjoy a really hefty match card for AEW Dynamite, and celebrate the life. He would have turned 39, and just being able to celebrate the life of Jay Briscoe, and that's how we're gonna do it tonight. So I'm excited. I don't normally talk about promoting shows out tonight, until later on, but I think this was worth talking and kicking things off on this today's program. So oh gosh, so AEW Dynamite tonight. We'll talk about also Bryan Danielson, who continues his path to MJF and the AEW World Championship at Revolution in February. Okay. Now, listen, he's had to go through a handful of things over the past time, throughout the last couple weeks. MJF has set Bryan Danielson up with a handful of matches and saying, hey, listen, if you want this Iron Man match at Revolution for this title, you gotta beat your opponents. And on the other sense, you got MJF sitting back here just watching, observing, being entitled to whatever he's, capable of giving. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm done here. There's a story part of Bryan Danielson trying to capture AEW's World Championship. I really don't know. I sat back and watched the highlights of Bryan Danielson the last couple of matches. I've sat back and I've watched the promos that MJF has come through, has delivered. And I'm not saying that they're bad. Okay. But there's a difference, a clear difference from before you become champion until when you become champion and the time that you possess the title that you own. And MJF, for me, I feel is always going to be that person that is a better person that probably brings the best out of him when he doesn't need a title around his waist. I don't think he needs a title around his waist. Although he is now the face of the company, which is, respectfully right. Now, the only thing that I'm excited, I think I mentioned this before, but the only thing that I'm excited out of MJF and his title run with the AEW World Championship is hopefully sometime this year is that we get to watch Wardlow finally get the revenge. He has yet to seek a proper revenge on MJF. So to be able to finally seek that revenge is the only thing that I'm looking for out of this title run. Otherwise, Bryan Danielson, we know he is a dragon. We know he fights until the end. He never gives up. And every feud he goes into, he delivers that type of persona. And that's what you love so great about Bryan Danielson. That's what makes this feud with MJF so unique. Oh, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, it continues tonight, but yet again, I guess I'm not too big about this feud between Bryan Danielson and MJF. And I think maybe more so I'm not more excited about MJF's title run as I thought it would be. So AEW Dynamite is tonight. We're going to get underway, talk about some of the matches. We talked about some of the matches, and I'll be, can't wait to come back and talk to you about our thoughts and our opinions. Maybe, I'm interested. What's going to tune me into tonight's AEW Dynamite is Mark Briscoe taking on Jay Lethal. Therefore, I'm going to obviously tune into Bryan Danielson taking on Brian Cage. And then we'll hopefully hear something from MJF. So maybe after watching it live, I'll come away with a different perspective. But I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Something's not working well with me. Also, something that came out yesterday is the Reach for the Sky memorial T-shirt that was released by Ring of Honor yesterday. T-shirts start off at $25. You could head over to the prowrestlingtees.com/them boys starting to get your tickets, not the tickets, but your T-shirts today. Limited time only. All proceeds head on over to the Pugh family. I'm hoping, a couple days before payday here, I'm hoping to grab myself a T-shirt here. So grab your head on over, grab your T-shirts as soon as possible. Show your support. I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe AEW will be, I guess, selling these shirts there at the actual arena tonight. If so, hook on it. Hopefully we could see some actual, not, I guess, friends, some church in this audience. So, all right. So what do we have planned for you today, this morning? I want to come back after our first break. And just like yesterday, where we spent a lot of time talking about WWE and Monday Night Raw, I want to talk a little bit more about everything that is going on. Bray Wyatt sent out a tweet yesterday in response to his confrontation or interaction with the dead man, the Undertaker, as they officially passed on the torch just a couple nights ago. I guess you could say that this was a passing of the torch, but I kind of want to read it to you what he has said, talk to you a little bit more about Raw 30. I really want to get more into the Royal Rumble conversation, you guys. I really want to talk to you more about the conversation of the direction of WrestleMania, especially how things come up. So we'll talk a little bit about that still to come. Like I said, 2 hours on this recording program, commercial breaks, everything's included. Just sit tight, grab your drinks, grab your popcorn, and let's enjoy some great sports talk here in the local area. Hopefully, wherever you guys are also staying safe with all the snow that's going around. And listen, let's have a great day. Thank you guys for tuning into the Throw-In with Justin. That's me, right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Sé lo que quiero, verme abajo, pero no puedo. Yeah. Nunca confunde el amor, la plata y las mujeres. Alrighty, welcome back here on the Throwing with Justin, available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Hey, listen, all this is impossible without the help of StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the Throw-In and the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. StreamYard Studios is where you can create your podcasts, videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out their free version today at StreamYard.com. All right, we're halfway through a week, you guys. Let's get our heads on right here as we talk some sports. Like I said, our number one heavily into a lot of professional wrestling. Just talked and got ourselves ready with AEW Dynamite, which is tonight. But, yesterday I talked to you guys because, how often do you really get a tweet or a response from The Undertaker, especially after Raw 30 back on Monday? And, we talked yesterday about The Undertaker responding, claiming that, hey, every moment is, just as, cruel, not cruel. Undertaker tweeted out yesterday, moments defined this industry. This one was special. We will probably never know what The Undertaker said to Bray Wyatt, but all we could really, I think there's a lot of symbolizing in that ring back on Monday night when The Undertaker, stood across the ring from Bray Wyatt, hand deliver LA Knight as Bray and LA get ready for the pitch black match this Saturday. And it was a bone chilling moment. And there was a moment where maybe a lot of people expected a feud to be brought up, but hey, for someone who's followed The Undertaker his entire, for at least my entire lifetime, it's kind of, this is a different approach. And I kind of anticipated the approach. I kind of did miss, the choke slam. I don't know if he's going to do a tombstone ever again, but, it was just nice because Bray Wyatt has done such a good job as of recently to really give play this persona and display these type of mind games, the things that you were used to growing up to with The Undertaker on SmackDown week in and week out. And the fact that we could finally continue seeing that, and it took him this long, but we're seeing that. And so Bray Wyatt actually commented in a tweet yesterday, and he says, and I quote, "This moment justified a lifetime of sacrifice for me, a lifetime of people treating my uniqueness like it was a disease. Through all the bad times, I never changed myself to fit anyone else's narrative. I'm proud of that. Thank you, Taker." And this really I think it means a lot. It means a lot to me too, because you've grown on Bray Wyatt, from one point having a feud to another point of, all right, we have, we're going to now accept that, listen, The Undertaker is immortal. He's going to live, his legacy is living on forever. And it's kind of one of those things where I know when we knew that The Undertaker's days were numbered, we're like, we're going to miss a big chunk of what made wrestling so much fun to watch every Friday night. Who is going to fill in those shoes? And, you're at the beginning, you kind of, it was like, okay, so let me put this in comparative of like a Disney movie, for example. Robin Williams, when he played Aladdin or the genie in Aladdin, right? When we heard about the remake, we're like, who in the world is going to be able to live up to the comedian style Robin Williams in this, luxury film? And then, one of my biggest concerns coming out of the film was that whoever was playing the genie, which I didn't know at the time, was going to ruin the original film for me. That was my belief. And then you see the production, and you find out that Will Smith does, is the genie, and he does a tremendous job. And let's be honest, I don't think that anyone else would have done a better job than than Will Smith. And it's like, all right, I'm happy. Think about this roster today. All right, who could have done a better job than Bray Wyatt to continue the mystical, majestic mind games that is being played. He's done this for the past 10 years, and he's done it so well. Okay, and he's doing it in his own character. He's not, it's not, the genie in both Aladdins, where you've had to just do what he did but try to do it better. No, this is Bray Wyatt saying, hey, I want to keep this mystiqueness going beyond the Undertaker's career, but I'm going to give it my own little twist. And to be able to revolutionize the mind games and be able to grow, and you understand, the Undertaker knows that. The Undertaker knows that, hey, maybe it shouldn't be a character that someone bases themselves off of, but he knows that, all right, Bray, if you could do it and you've done it and you've gotten a great reaction to it, I mean, these are, Bray Wyatt, whether you love him or you hate him, he brings those bone-chilling moments to the ring. It's just the moment, okay, where LA Knight, stands at the top, back at the stage, and the lights turn off, and, for a moment, you're like, what's going on? And next you see Bray Wyatt there, sends chills down my spine as a 27-year-old man. You know what that reminds you of? That reminds you of the 1990s, and when the Undertaker came down the ring and the lights will turn off, and you hear the thunder and the crackles of the rain and the lightning, and you see these mind games of the coffin and all that stuff, and you realize, you hear stories so much about that time period where even on television you felt chills just seeing him come down to the ring. And if you're there live, you saw the fear in family and kids and adults of who this person is and what he's capable of doing. To have that in Bray Wyatt, I think there's such a great combination. Who, like I said, who's better to pass that along other than Bray Wyatt himself? And so if you take away anything from Monday night and the interaction with the Undertaker and Bray Wyatt, and if you got to just learn anything, this is a passing of the torch. Forever how long Bray Wyatt's in the ring, all right, this is his yard, this is his ring, this is his universe, okay, to play these mind games, okay, and he's gonna, and Bray Wyatt is very creative, he's very prone and stuck to the character. I mean, I would love to see the time frame that people try to make Bray Wyatt break character, because it's been a while since we've seen this stuff, and we enjoy it. We enjoy the aspect of this type of entertainment as professional wrestling fans. It makes you really want to tune in to Friday night, see what's next, tune into the Royal Rumble, see what type of match LA Knight and Bray Wyatt has, and then to move forward. Anytime Bray Wyatt's in that ring, that you're glued to the TV or glued to listening to what he's saying. Just like when the Undertaker was growing up. I knew growing up, I was watching SmackDown all the time, and I only tuned in mainly to see Bray Wyatt, to see the Undertaker. So, I mean, take it for what it's worth. I think this is legendary. I think this is a historical moment, and it's great to see Bray Wyatt finally getting acknowledged by the dead man, which I felt like has probably been a little overdue, in my opinion. Back on Monday, we saw a lot of great people. We saw Hulk Hogan, Jimmy Hart, DX, Kurt Angle, The Undertaker, JBL, Ron Simmons, The Godfather, Ted DiBiase. And, I mentioned, yesterday, there was a couple of people that you were disappointed on seeing. and really what made Raw. So I was kind of thinking about a list of people who we did not get a chance to see. I mentioned yesterday John Cena, mentioned the Bella twins, Kane. I threw out, I'm also going to throw in some guy names like Trish Stratus and Lita, who really defined their careers on Raw. And in that women's division, we didn't get a chance to see them. Um, Mick Foley said that he came out saying I was invited, but due to my schedule, and if I had a couple of days off, I would have came down to be a part of it. But then we didn't see, like, I mentioned John Cena, a clear guy who did help the 2000s era, I guess, in the kids in the 2000s to enjoy wrestling. I mean, he was that Raw figure. He was the face of the company for such a long period of time. To see him not there, not involved, was a little surprising. Steve Austin, Stone Cold, where was he at? The Rock. And I think, you kind of start reflecting back on the memories, and I'm like, already we're Raw 30. We didn't really quite get a chance to see really realistically a couple of main guys that made Raw for what it was today. I mean, Steve Austin and The Rock, John Cena, three key guys, part of the Raw roster for a long period of time that helped shape, form, and develop Monday Night Raw for what it was and why it's the longest reigning television show of the world. So, I'm kind of I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get to see a couple of those guys. But it is what it is. At the end of the day. Interesting fact coming out of Monday Night Raw, kind of topping this off here. Apparently, it was reported that Becky Lynch and Bayley's steel cage match that was scheduled for Monday night, that ended up breaking out to Damage Control attacking Becky Lynch, locking themselves in the ring with Becky, and just leaving her lying in the center of the ring, clenching to her stomach, injured, not feeling well. That's all really, apparently it was reported that it was because of the long segment that the Bloodline had. So let me ask you this. Was it worth the long segment for the Bloodline, or was it worth, or should we really did need to see this match between Bayley and Becky Lynch inside a steel cage? And I think my answer is as much I would have loved to see a steel cage match. Sami Zayn and the Bloodline was much more important to see than Bayley and Becky Lynch. Bayley and Becky Lynch are people who are two females, great athletes, great competitors, that, listen, I want to give them the spotlight where it deserves. And I appreciate that these two females, knowing the circumstances, knowing the conditions, that they would decide to say, hey, listen, let's cut this out. Let's do something shorter, because we could always come back around to it at a later date to really give the audience this type of match that they've been looking for. So I kind of appreciate that. A little disappointed to hear that was the reason, but I mean, I think it was good management in my behalf. So kudos to the creative team. Kudos to Triple H and the WWE. Kudos to Becky Lynch and Bayley. And they did. I think WWE Monday Night Raw was an impactful show. They really tried to, put a lot of things in there. It was nonstop, total action. So really enjoyed it as well. All right, we got to take a timeout. When we come back, I want to get your reactions on Brock Lesnar returning. This time in a different role, to be honest. And do you like it or not? And I think the big question here, coming out of everything too, is that we need to start talking about the options for Roman Reigns if The Rock isn't going to be presented, because we're running out of days, you guys. So still that to come and much more for 2 hours on the throw-in. Thank you guys for tuning in here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, let's come on back to the throw-in, wrap up hour number 1, and we just keep it rolling into hour number 2 today. Hopefully things get better. We'll be back on a 6 to 8 a.m. schedule, as I sure do miss those. But I can't do nothing about the weather here. Justin here with you, taking you guys for a complete 2-hour journey. And man, I got to ask you guys, how do you guys feel about Brock Lesnar returning? Okay, nice response. I'm okay with that. You know, I think it was very upsetting to see Brock Lesnar enter the Royal Rumble and win the Royal Rumble to go on to lose at WrestleMania against Roman Reigns. And it's, listen, it's a generational feud. It's a decade feud that we saw between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. And some people are tired of it. Some people will say that we want to see more. And hey, let's put a pin in it because we're going Hollywood, right? And Brock Lesnar is one of those guys that when he comes, he will sell seats. And while SmackDown is busy with Roman Reigns and trying to deal with all that we'll talk about here in a moment, we don't really have nothing going on for Raw. Bobby Lashley's been in and out of Raw the last couple months, maybe dealing with personal issues, injuries, whatever. And so you really relied on Seth Rollins as a veteran to really keep Raw pushing forward. And then now you get Brock Lesnar to come back. And, you're going to say, I know a lot of people will say, hey, part-timers are just part-timers. They shouldn't be back. But, it was kind of like Hulk Hogan. It was kind of like, when you bring, those are certain guys that you can depend on to, one, sell tickets, to put, make matches more interesting. And in this scenario, which I'm hoping, you guys, that we can see Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania, because this first go around, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was at Crown Jewel. Okay, we didn't really see a great match out of both of them. And I don't care about the stipulations. I don't care about the concerns and the issues that they had. The point of the matter is that we want to see one hell of good of a match. And WrestleMania is that spotlight for these two athletes, to be honest. So, this is a tell of the take, you guys. These are really two average. These are, you can't match it up better, in age and weight and, experience. Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar. I'm looking forward to a WrestleMania match. I'm hoping it drags out that long. Now I'm interested to see, because Monday night, Bobby Lashley was ultimately going for the United States Championship. And you also saw MVP try to insert himself into the title picture mix again. And, the last week before that, so as Bobby Lashley has two angles right now. One is, hey, Brock Lesnar, what the fuck did you do? You came out while I almost won this match, and you cost me the United States Championship match, which I earned the week before. Okay. And two, on my left, I have Omos and MVP breathing down my neck saying, hey, join the Hurt Business and we will protect you and make sure that you captivate everything as, possible. Well, obviously Bobby Lashley has some unfinished business, but listen, Bobby Lashley has 2 paths he could go down. He may have to go down the left side to get to the right side. I don't know. But, and then I think it's to say is, all right, is if there is, and is there any involvement from MVP, from Omos to get to Brock Lesnar to make all of this happen? So I know it's a lot, and I'll just breathe in with me, but I think this makes Raw a little bit more interesting, and it kind of helps the workload for Seth Rollins to kind of unravel, because people are going to pay attention. Because yeah, you're right. I'm going to want to pay attention to what happens next week on Raw after Royal Rumble, and I want to hear Bobby Lashley's response and how he's going to handle it, because you still have Elimination Chamber, and then you also have before WrestleMania. So still some time away. Interesting note, WWE has officially separated the unified tag title. So although the Usos have both titles, it's now being challenged Raw tag team titles, SmackDown tag team titles. We may possibility down the road see a title separation through, to, I guess, declare all this and whatnot. Bigger question, I think, coming out of everything, like I said, WrestleMania is on this way. I think, I read a report the other day that matches are starting to fall into place. And if, they're hoping to finalize the match card within the next week or two for WrestleMania, which means, what realistically are the plans for Roman and The Rock? And I know that's kind of been up in the air. I know that's on our table, timetable. And, The Rock has come out and said, listen, I'm not in physical shape, nor I'm not going to be able to get into physical shape between now and WrestleMania. So there right now, how everyone's presenting this is that The Rock is not invited to the Royal Rumble, which is in Texas, and he's not in any condition to get to face the Roman Reigns. So 2 things are happening here. One, either that is true, and we're going to have to approach a different way down the line to see who Roman Reigns will be facing at WrestleMania, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. Or the other option is that they're playing one hell of a game by keeping it a secret, and they've done it before, and we're going to get surprised and we'll get what we want. It's been over a year since we've been talking about Rock and Roman at Mania, and people want to see it. You would think that you would just kind of put 2 and 2 together. If the fans are calling it for so much, the fans called for Sting and The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Did we ever see that? No. And I think that's one of the biggest, although it was best unsaid, it was probably one of the biggest disappointments we've ever seen in wrestling history. But then we get down back to The Rock and Roman, which everyone's calling for it. Is it really best just not to see them 2 in the ring? I mean, you really want to put Roman up at the top of the food chain, you got to beat The Rock. You got to beat Dwayne Johnson. But is it realistically best for business at the end of the day? It'd be best for Roman Reigns, best for the bloodline. It's the best for, and then afterwards you got to start thinking about conclusions. And that's where I'm kind of at right now. Are there any conclusions? So let's say The Rock, whatever is being presented out there is true, that The Rock is not ready for WrestleMania, nor he's not in condition, nor WWE has not asked him, and they want to go down a different path. What happens, and who could possibly be Roman Reigns' opponent for WrestleMania? And, there's a few options out there on the table. I think Seth Rollins is one. I wouldn't put it past Sami Zayn to be somebody being a part of the bloodline for the last 9 months and then changing it to, having, I guess, okay, so being part of the, Sami Zayn being part of the bloodline for 9 months. Now you're starting to see this twist and turn. Maybe Roman Reigns decides to give him a title shot just for the hell of it. Maybe maybe his last challenge is to win the Rumble match to keep him safe at Mania. And then therefore you actually see a fight from Sami Zayn. There's a couple different scenarios that you could go down, and we'll see, I guess, eventually. But let's throw some other names out there, because Cody Rhodes is to mention. Now, I still believe Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins have unfinished business. Could you see Randy Orton come back and face Roman Reigns? What about Edge? Never really got his one-on-one opportunity. That means he would have to win the Royal Rumble 3 times. I don't know if they're going to give him that opportunity. Braun Strowman, hasn't really gotten a fair opportunity at Roman Reigns, so we could see Braun Strowman in the picture. Braun Breaker, an upcoming talent from NXT, who's been already submitted a whole year. There's options out there. There's not a lot of logical options out there, because I guess I don't want to see a repeat, someone who's faced Roman, lost to Roman, and who's had to face him again. So I think it limits Cody Rhodes, and I could defend why he should and why he shouldn't. Maybe it's too soon. Maybe you need it to be too soon. I just don't see Cody Rhodes being the one to actually doing it. You could also see, or I would also throw in there and see, I don't know why Braun Strowman wouldn't be able to beat Roman Reigns, but maybe that just doesn't happen. So there are options. My biggest thing right now, until we get to Royal Rumble, which is this Saturday, I'm still believed that whatever WWE and whatever Dwayne Johnson's saying on social media about he's not ready is going to come back around and lead to the family competing against each other at Mania. The next thing is, you still have to consider, and I still think that you should be considering of this, who can win, what is the path for Roman Reigns at WrestleMania? He's been competing he's been competing now and being, on this longevity stream for over a year. Now, at least according to history and according to, what we've seen in the past, so after you have a title run, you go on vacation. Usually that lasts up to a year, maybe 9 months. But you get to WrestleMania, you drop the title, and you figure that, okay, maybe this, you figure that he would have dropped the title last year against Brock Lesnar. Didn't happen. He's carried it for, over 3 years now, and he has not really gotten that, I guess, quote unquote, rest period. So, there are options and considerations of, okay, do we does Roman drop the title to go take a break and come back to it at a later date? Or, and if that's the case, you got to be sure whoever you're delivering that title to has to become in good hands. My biggest fear and problem I have with Roman Reigns and his upcoming WrestleMania opponent is that we've seen him face almost everyone in that locker room. So the next opponent has two things that has to happen, in my opinion, in order to kind of break the roof with this. One, it has to be someone we've never seen Roman Reigns face. And there's maybe only selective guys. We've even seen John Cena, and he's failed. We've seen Brock Lesnar, he's failed. Seth Rollins failed. Rey Mysterio's failed. Kevin Owens has failed, just like I think he's going to fail this Saturday, unfortunately. So someone has to be new. And then on top of that, someone has to be, you have to see him actually being able to defeat Roman Reigns. If that's to happen, it's hard to see Roman Reigns go to WrestleMania, beat whoever, and still with the title. So I will like this, so as much as I want The Rock to be here, I'm kind of throwing Sami Zayn. I don't know. There's just I know we mentioned this over the past week that Sami Zayn could team up with Kevin Owens and, win the tag team titles. But realistically, why does not Sami Zayn qualify to face Roman Reigns and beat Roman Reigns for the championship? I put him in that. I legitimately consider him, because it's a complete shock to everyone. You wouldn't think that he's capable of doing it, and then he does it. So why not Sami Zayn? All right, hour number 1 is complete. Take you to hour number 2 when we come back. Give you some round the town local sports and everything. Thank you guys for tuning into the Throwing with Justin right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Hour number 2 here on the Throw-In is given to you by Spreaker. For all your audio podcasters out there, if you guys are looking to upload your podcast and get paid for it, at least give an opportunity to get paid for it, check out Spreaker.com. Spreaker.com is the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All of our audio platforms are uploaded to the Spreaker. You guys can check us out and download us. Take us on the road with you wherever you go, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you get your audio podcasting at. That's where we're at. So thank you guys again, and thank Spreaker so much. Great stuff going on over there with Spreaker, and it's a really easy thing. You're able to put it in commercial breaks, and that's why I have breaks here, because that way I know when I come in and I edit it, I know how to do it, when to do it. It feels like it's just like a smooth process. So like I said, hour number 1, this is more of a recording, unfortunately, because when I woke up this morning, I was I was kind of prepared for the snow and the weather that came through us. Thank goodness it's kind of just stuck a little bit more up north. But when I was dealing with the weather, usually this is how morning goes when it's really cold, that certain equipment don't want to work first thing in the morning, especially the internet service. So unfortunately, we didn't get, I was like, man, I was having so much trouble that I just was not going to deal with it, and I'm just going to go ahead and just move past it. So, and I had some things I had to do first thing in the morning. I said I would have went live in the morning, and I only like going live in the morning unless I really have to in the afternoon. So I went ahead and went doing this recording and be posted up on the same day, and then the audio. I'm going to do the audio first and then post this up, because I know YouTube takes a good amount of time. But we do talk about local Cincinnati sports as games have evolved, and we get ready for games that are going to be played today. So just take you back to yesterday. The only game in our area that was being played is Kentucky Wildcats, who picked up the victory last night against Vanderbilt. Now, I haven't really watched a lot of college basketball, at least not as much as I would like personally. Tuned in to maybe about 3 minutes of the game, didn't really catch much out of it, but they won 69-53. Oscar Shibui, sorry, apologize if I butcher that name, put up 15 points, 13 rebounds, 7 for 10 at the free throw line. Jacoby Toppin, big name coming out of the Wildcats as of late, put up 12 points, 10 rebounds, 6 for 7. Dominating victory that they had. They moved to 14-6, 5-3 in conference play on the winning streak of 4 games. Your next game is going to be on the 28th, which will be on Saturday, I believe. Saturday against Kansas at 8 p.m. would be a nighttime game. Games going around today. Cincinnati Cyclones coming in today's game, 21-8-4-2 will be facing the Newfoundland Growlers at 7. Puck drops at 7:30 p.m. Our time at the Heritage Bank Arena. $2 beer nights. The Growlers come in 27-10 and 1-0. First in the north of this ECHL, as the Cyclones come in second of the Central. The Bearcats are off until Saturday, where they take on Houston at 2:15. Xavier plays today at UConn. Tip-off is at 6:30 p.m. It's a Big East Conference game as well. So that's coming around in our local area. We're in, obviously we're getting ready for the Bengals heading over to Kansas City to face the Chiefs this coming up Sunday. We're excited for it. I'm excited for it. A lot there to going on. We're back. It's a repeat game, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about it as the week comes to an end. But we also, man, are you nervous? One of the biggest things that we had is that, hey, this is a repeat, and at the end of the day, I still consider Kansas City one of the most dominant teams in the postseason. Okay. Patrick Mahomes has a sprained ankle, and it's going to probably get worse before it gets better, like it always does. But is that going to stop him from playing Sunday? I don't think so. I don't think so. And you even saw against Jacksonville, a broken down Patrick Mahomes can still perform. Yeah, you're not gonna you're not gonna get the Mahomes that can utilize the exterior parts of the field. You're not gonna get the Mahomes that can run 100 yards, but you're gonna get the Mahomes that you're gonna be able to get the Mahomes that can still evaluate your defense. And Kansas City's defense is at the top of his game. So, you got to think about this. Our defense is pretty good, and I'll give you that. And Kansas City's defense probably just that much better. And yes, you got Joe Burrow taking on a injured Patrick Mahomes, which I think that they would be about, a match. And then you got Zach Taylor versus Andy Reid. And Kansas City broke a lot of records last week. And you get, like I said, the butterflies and, still kind of get with you as we get ready for this game. I mean, it gets with me. I'm a little worried, just because, even with an injured Mahomes, what the Chiefs can do. Yes, the Bengals have been good. They won the last 10 games, 2 of them being with the Baltimore Ravens, and they've averaged about 6 of those 10 games. Defense have only allowed about 16, under 20 points. But that means, you're going to have to stop this really good Patrick Mahomes guy and Travis Kelce, at the line, and give, only restrict them from 16 points. You're also going to have an offense who's had struggles at the offensive line, and I don't want to jinx anything, but I know last week everything kind of fell together, but that may not be the case this week. And they're going to have to somehow beat a top defense out of Kansas City is a top defense out of San Francisco. So some really good matchups there. We'll break that down a little bit more. But we're jumping into Cincinnati Reds as we get ready for spring training in just a few weeks. This whole week, they've been doing this Reds caravan, something that they haven't done in years since the pandemic. Yesterday they were at Batesville, Indiana on a West tour, Southeastern Indiana, YMCA. Today they will be more east, Charleston, West Virginia at the Coliseum and Convention Center from 5:30 to 7:30. If you're out there, that east tour is consistent of TJ Friedel, minor league Nick Northcutt, Casey Legumina, broadcaster Tommy Thrall, and general manager Nick Crail, and the mascot Mr. Red. I've already kind of expressed the lacklusting caravan that the Reds displayed this week. But I think it's always good just to kind of talk about, the Reds and upcoming stuff. And, spring training, February 17th, mark that on your calendar. I got it marked in blue, red, and black ink because it's gonna, baseball's around the corner. Once baseball starts, it's everything. And so, which leads me to my next thing, you guys. We got to talk about the Reds and its off-season injuries. A lot of people will be like, you know what, listen, wait until spring training starts, wait until a couple of practices, and we'll start evaluating, what is going to, what's going to happen, right? Who's injured, who's not. But then you hear stories and you read articles, you start getting updates, and there's a couple of three main concerns that I have coming into this season already. And it's another pile on to all the struggles and the complications that the Reds are having. Big one coming out there is Joey Votto. That shoulder surgery that he had last year, really just hasn't really been recovering the way that it should. And there's a good chance that he may be missing some time at the beginning of the year. Now, listen, this is why we go pick up that extra catcher so we could throw guys like Will Myers and Tyler Stevenson out there at first base. But Joey Votto can be a guy, a utility guy, a nice utility guy. I guess this is where you can almost assume that this is a lost cause, because with players ready to leave like Votto, being out the door most likely next year, and him trying to still occupy a full man slot at 1 out of 26 on that roster, it sets up for disaster. I just can't express how much we really need a guy like Votto available to us, because last year we were prone to injuries, and this is where I think it helps out the most, because Votto doesn't have to be your everyday first baseman anymore. And I think this year, especially since all the minor leaguers and all the upcomings, I think we really need to consider either looking for another long-term first baseman, or, all right, let's use, a guy like Will Myers or Tyler Stevenson mainly at first base, where he's kind of more protected, especially a guy like Tyler Stevenson, because we're going to need Stevenson's bat in play, in each game as throughout the entire season. And he's gotten hurt a few times behind the plate, and I feel like that's where you're going to get injured at the most. And so either you could designate him, put him at the DH, or you can put him in the conversation of first base mix. Give him some more time at first base. I think first base is less of an injury prone compared to most positions. Or you could use Will Myers. But if you're going to use Will Myers, you're going to need to get a couple more outfielders. And that leaves me with my second person, Nick Senzel. Nick Senzel has kind of been dealing with that ankle injury since the end of the season last year. And, we don't, like I said, don't know the status until it come, until spring training. We start seeing evaluations and everyone's reporting and, a couple of days of practice. But the outfield is already thin as it is. And when the guy goes out, you really don't have no one else that you can rely or trust on to fill in the position. On top of that, Senzel's one of those guys who is also competing for a starting position out there in center field. TJ Friedel was one of the guys also concerning with his injury as well. And so before the spring training even starts, you guys. Sorry. But before spring training even starts, you guys, okay? We're already hit with a couple of major questions coming into the season. And it's hard because you want to look at positivity. You want to look at, all right, spring training's here. Here's a couple of good things going for us. And I still feel like, listen, the Reds aren't done yet. They still need a couple X, Y's, and Z's that they're going to rely on their minor league farm system to come up in the middle of the year. Well, I mean, you got Will Myers. Can you go out and maybe grab a outfielder? Maybe you could grab a pitcher or a bullpen guy that you can rely on. Those are all big problems that I just don't see happening. That is already, indicating of what, Phil Castellini said the other day at the Rosie Red luncheon. We're just not going to win. Before the season even started, we're already considered out of the playoffs. And it's going to be difficult to, stay tuned with Reds baseball for the entire prolong of the next year, 2, 3, 4, whatever it takes before we actually see the Reds start, until we see the Reds start actually performing well. Now, this is nothing decredited to the actual players on that Reds roster. The Reds roster, I think, compacted with the, unexperienced talent that's on there already, is a solid team. But, Nick Kroll has his hands tied. He's doing everything he can to meet the standards and put a team on the field for the Castellinis without spending a dime. And he's done okay with it. It's just you feel like you're there, that you're okay. Let's even contend if you just get that one or two guys that are veterans that know what they're doing and can come in and really set the table for the rest of the ball club. So a couple updates in the Cincinnati area over there. I'm going to step aside. I want to come back because MLB has released their class of 23 votes. We'll talk about who's came in and will be inducted into this year's Hall of Fame when we return. Thank you guys for tuning in, taking you up until until hour number 2 completes right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, we'd like to also give a shout out to Epidemic Sounds for the music that is being played here on our program coming back from our breaks. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com today. Alrighty. It's kind of interesting how sports kind of always come back to each other in a sense of, okay, football is going to be done with in about 3 weeks. You got the conference championship games this weekend. You got the Pro Bowl, which is now is more like, um, certain like 7-on-7 scenarios. Great. And then you got the Super Bowl, and then within just days afterwards, baseball starts. And regardless of its spring training or opening day, pitchers and catchers reporting, this is a round the clock deal, which is exciting. MLB has announced their 2023 class of Hall of Fame induction class of 2023. It's the best way to put it. And I think there was a little bit of nervousness going into this class because there was a lot of good guys I mentioned to you guys yesterday that could have went in. I mean, we had guys just kind of going over that list: Bobby Abreu, Mark Buehler, Todd Helton, Torrey Hunter, Andrew Jones, Jeff Kent, Andy Pettit, Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Scott Rollins, Jimmy Rollins, Gary Sheffield, Omar Vizquel, Carlos Beltran, Bronson Awario. And if you're a Reds fan, you kind of look for guys like Bronson Arroyo, Scott Rowland, a couple good guys on the list. And it's kind of interesting because for me, I'm seeing, guys that I watched growing up that was always, being maybe a dangerment to the Padres organization. Well, we want to take today, because it was announced yesterday, okay, for the first time, we want to give a big congratulations out to Scott Rowland. Yeah, I think that's definitely right. Who joins Fred McGriff in Cooperstown for the MLB Hall of Fame class of 23. Something just it's interesting. I watched maybe a little bit of Scott Rowland in Cincinnati towards the end of his career. He's played for a couple of different ball clubs, Reds, Phillies, Cardinals, and the Blue Jays. 18 he's the 18th third baseman to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. From 19, he played from 1996 to 2012. Average lifetime, batting average 281, 364 and 490, with a lifetime of 2,077 hits with 316 home runs. But his greatest part of his career could be arguably said between 1998 to 2004, with the batting average of 298, 380 on base percentage, and 532. Okay, slugging percentage and on base percentage 532. 10th all time among third basemen in rankings. All-Star game. He was in 7 All-Star games. He was an MVP vote in 4 seasons. 1997 NL Rookie of the Year. I think it's only going to come down to get those messages in the middle. Apologize about that. But then, now I think it well enough to be determined. Listen, he has to determine. He was uncertain yesterday whether he should be a Philadelphia Philly or a St. Louis Cardinal. Now, he's played for the Cincinnati Reds for a few years. He has some good numbers. But those I think are going to be his 2 main options because he's had more success at those positions. So congratulations to Scott Rowland for joining Fred McGriff in Cooperstown for the MLB Hall of Fame class of 2023. It's kind of like, all right, let's kind of sit down and think of anything else to say. It's just in the baseball note, kind of gets you in the same category. 10 newcomers for the 2024 Baseball Hall of Fame ballot. A lot of more guys that you kind of remember, if you guys recall: Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer for the Minnesota Twins, the catcher, first baseman, Chase Utley for the Phillies, David Wright for the Mets, who retired a few years ago, Matt Holliday, Adrian Gonzalez. Grew up watching him along with the elite Padres of my time. Um, really loving Adrian Gonzalez. Hopefully he gets in. Just because, he he was one of the factors helping Mexico baseball out. Played with his brother Edwin Gonzalez. Back in the early days, Padres went through the whole brother foundation. They had both Scott and Jerry Hairston at one point, Brian and Marcus Giles at one point. Um, Adrian and Edwin Gonzalez, all that fun stuff. Jose Batista out there in Toronto, Jose Reyes, Victor Martinez, and Bartolo Colon. Oh no. So new class coming up here next year. Hopefully we see some more. One of those things that we don't see quite often is, we haven't seen a big class in a while. David Ortiz was last year. No one the year before. Matter of fact, I mean, it's kind of been soft, but they were capable. They were capable of getting something done and a ballot pulled through. So, congratulations to Scott Rowland again for being inducted into this year's Cooperstown class, MLB Hall of Fame class of 2023. All right. See, this is where I get stuck for the last 30 minutes. We'll talk about a few things. I'm trying to figure out where I want to go with this, because I don't want to go too deep into a segment and then have to cut it off because of a break. But, we'll talk, there's some off. Okay. So this is how I'm going to do it. All right. So we'll get more into the conference championship games later on this week. I'm just kind of curious of the options that we have that are for the upcoming Super Bowl. And I want to give you maybe a favorite that I could have for the upcoming Super Bowl. I'm looking at some of the list, and let's just say we go into Sunday's game and we beat the Chiefs, and the Chiefs go on, and then we go on to the Super Bowl, back-to-back repeats for the Super Bowl, which you hardly see, especially from a losing team. Okay. I believe this is the Bengals are the first team ever to go to the Super Bowl and lose, start the following season 0-2, and go back to the AFC or to a conference championship game. So with that being said, if Cincinnati wins and goes to the Super Bowl, their opponents are going to either be Philadelphia and San Francisco. Now, if it's Philadelphia, then I think these are the two least favorite out of the four that would be heading into the Super Bowl. And that would be a dangerous side. I think either you're facing the 49ers or you're facing the Eagles are going to be a dangerous sight to see if you're the Bengals. But, I think that would be, I don't know who would want to see that. I don't know if, in my opinion, that will be a sight that I want to see. Obviously, I'd be rooting for the Bengals either way. But yeah, maybe, I think if you had to choose, if you're the Bengals, you had to choose your opponent for the Super Bowl between the 49ers and the Eagles, you'd go for the Eagles because they probably have more flaws than the 49ers, even though, the 49ers are ranked the number one defense in the NFL. But then you also do have to think the Bengals could be facing the 49ers if they win. And we would have two teams reuniting a rivalry from the 80s at which the Bengals lost to, started this losing streak to, so I feel like there's more historical value coming into this game, Super Bowl matchup. If the Bengals win, you kind of want the 49ers to win just because, you know, hey, history is history, you guys. If the Bengals last season, they haven't won a playoff game up into the Raiders. As a matter of fact, they started their losing streak because of the Raiders. And now then they broke it in the wild card game. Wouldn't it be nice to break it again? The Super Bowl drought that they've had against the team that started it all for them. So those are the options that I have. I'm really, if the Bengals win the AFC Conference Championship game, I'm rooting for the Bengals and the 49ers. I feel like there'll be a much more entertaining game. Then you get over to Kansas City, and I know people don't want to hear this, but if Kansas City wins and they go on, you have Kansas City and Philadelphia, and then you also have San Francisco and Kansas City. And, you know, Kansas City and San Francisco is a rematch from a couple years ago. I believe that if Kansas City and San Francisco goes on to the Super Bowl, that San Francisco may have the upper advantage this time. But if Kansas City and Philadelphia, I think it'd be the second. So if I got to rank these, let's say I'm going to rank them 1 to 4. Coming in at number 4 is Kansas City, and actually coming in at number 4 is Cincinnati and Philadelphia. I apologize, but that's just not my favorite. Coming in at number 3 will be Kansas City and Philadelphia. And number 2 will be Kansas City and San Francisco in a Super Bowl rematch. And then coming in at number 1 will be Cincinnati and San Francisco in the streak drought. So those are kind of my favorites moving into the Super Bowl. And I'm excited to see, you know, kind of the suspense is starting to build up. And listen, we're going to have a great weekend. You know why we're going to have a great weekend? Is because we got SmackDown this Friday night, the night before the Rumble, which is on Saturday. That's going to be all day Saturday. And then you jump over to Sunday where you have 2 football games. So when we come back on Monday, we're going to have a lot to talk about. The other thing is that we're going to have 2 whole weeks to talk about football. So I'm going to have to definitely start dividing everything up and moving things forward, trying to get us past. Hopefully, I'm hoping that some more stories progress and open up that we can have open conversations with. With that being said, just like this coming up one after our break, which is going to lead us to our break after this, the Green Bay Packers expecting to consider trade with Aaron Rodgers to the AFC to a AFC team in 2023 this offseason. So we'll talk about that when we come up, wrapping up our show, tipping you off at the end of hour number 2. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate your guys' love and support. And stay tuned. Don't go nowhere. You guys are listening to The Throne right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I want to go ahead and give a big shout out to our friends over there at Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. Join Steve Barber and Dwaylon Davis as they break down news and highlights in professional wrestling. The Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast is a weekly wrestling podcast founded on YouTube and on all audio streaming platforms. Go check out their latest episode today at armchairbookingpodcast.com. And I have things up on my and I want to take this time and just talk to you guys about what Armchair Booking, what Steve and Dwaylon is doing over there at Armchair Booking Podcast. They're doing this kind of interview process about why are we fans. So they just had an interview about 18 hours ago that was posted up on their YouTube channel. I was actually on there about a week ago So, why are we fans? And there's I think it's a simple question, and it's just a time for people to sit around and just kind of reflect. Why are we wrestling fans? And I think one of the things that we can go off of is, yeah, we are wrestling fans because things like what we saw at WrestleMania or at Monday Night Raw 30th anniversary, for me, wrestling fans is going to probably be more prone to WrestleMania, WWE, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, because that's what I grew up on. But I tell you, we are wrestling fans, and Steve and Dwaylen do a wonderful job trying to, set the tone, asking everyone they know, just kind of filling in. And these are great conversations to have, you guys. So if you guys are wrestling fans, I want to know what makes you a wrestling fan. Why are you a fan of professional wrestling? Was there a specific moment? Was there a specific person that really got you hooked on and gravitated to wrestling? I tell my story all the time. It was the Undertaker on Friday nights that captivated me, saying I got to hook on to WrestleMania. That's why when I see the Undertaker, it's a must see. And the way that Bray Wyatt holds himself is he's a must see guy. He's just, in a lot of my eyes, he's like the Undertaker. He is that, and you talk about that passing the torch, and he's that guy. He is the guy that, Bray Wyatt has given me another new life and foundation on why I am a wrestling fan. It reminds me of why I tuned into this to begin with many, many years ago. So I want to hear from you guys. If you guys are wrestling fans, why? All right. So, I've talked to you guys before about this. We are, just because there's still a few more football games going on doesn't mean we can't start prepping for the off season, which, yet again, this year is supposed to come off a little bit different. And we're right back around to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. And for some people, you may be kind of like, fine, I'm done with this. I don't want to know more. Just leave me out of it. And trust me, it does get a little, hectic talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. But, a report came out yesterday saying that Green Bay Packers are ready to consider trade options to to trade Aaron Rodgers to an AFC team this offseason. Now, they can't do it quite yet, but the options are out there. You have, I think the Packers need to understand and maybe realize that, all right, how many years does Aaron Rodgers have? And they've already started making those changes. They got rid of Devontae Adams last year. They brought in a whole new set of rookie, young guys in the receiver positions. And so as Aaron Rodgers still sits here and wants to find another Super Bowl championship ring, it may just not be with the Green Bay Packers, unfortunately. And that's the cold hard truth. And I think, Jordan Love is still young enough. I personally believe that this is the time to do so. Now, you can't lollygag and you can't dick around when it comes down to this decision. The Packers need to say, are we going to move on? And if so, let's move on accordingly. Or if we're going to stick with Aaron Rodgers, we're going to need to give him the offensive line support and the support from the receivers. Now, Aaron Rodgers has done something this past season that I think has blown a lot of people's minds, and something that I don't think people expected Aaron Rodgers to accomplish this year. And that was to be able to take a young group of guys in the receivers and shape them to become NFL players. And, he's been patient. And I think for me, the respect for Rodgers is on another level because of that. But at the same time, you know, Aaron Rodgers, let's face it, you're at the end of your career. I'm not saying that you can't go down and win another Super Bowl, but you're going to have to choose the right team that you want to play for in order for that to happen. All right. You're going to need a team that has veteran receivers. All right. Guys that are just as good as Devontae Adams. You're going to need an offensive line that can protect you because, yes, Aaron, you are a pocket passer, and that's fine. But you need those guys that can block for you. And right now, those are the two type of quarterbacks you have. And, you also need a good defense to stop, the offense, because just because you have receivers, just because you have offensive line, if your defense isn't there, then you're not going to win any football games. So if you're going to go to a different team, and I'm pretty sure that this is a collaboration between the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, and I'm assuming the conversations, I don't know what they're saying, but I'm assuming the conversations are going something like, listen, all right, Aaron, you want to go? We kind of, we want you here. We want you to finish your career here. But if we are to separate ways, let's have this open conversation because we want to get the most for you. And we also want you to go to a team that is going to actually treat you right. Okay. At least that's my feeling behind this. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, Green Bay is not necessarily looking for a quarterback. They got Jordan Love. So they're not looking for an easy swap one quarterback to another quarterback. They have Jordan Love. And the only reason why Jordan Love has not gotten his opportunity, and I think that we haven't really gotten a chance to see what he's capable of doing because he hasn't had the consistency of being on that field week in and week out and to be able to show. And when he was on the field, he hasn't been a bad quarterback. But what we have been able to understand is that I think what Green Bay is looking for, which helps them, is probably more receivers, maybe another offensive line, maybe key elements to the defense. And I think this helps Green Bay out tremendously because teams out there looking for quarterbacks, they don't have a quarterback to give up. And obviously Green Bay ain't getting a quarterback, and the Packers may grab a quarterback in the postseason or in the offseason and maybe at the NFL draft this year, but they're not going to give up a tremendous amount because they already have Jordan Love. And at least this year, they can start looking into how Jordan Love is going to handle business moving forward as the future quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. They're talking about some top teams that would be interested in for Aaron Rodgers. And I've mentioned this, a few teams. You mentioned things like maybe Seattle, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, New York and the Jets, the Titans, the Colts could always use a quarterback. But you start narrowing down, as much as we could throw in predictions, you can also narrow down a few teams that probably have a better chance and probably desperately needs a quarterback. Now, all right, so the mention out there was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because apparently Tom Brady is looking to seek his team, another team elsewhere, whether that's Miami, whether that is, Las Vegas, whether that is San Francisco. Maybe he just ends up retiring. Tom Brady, we won't know until after the offseason. And I want to honestly say until we actually see a season without Tom Brady in it, we cannot be certain on it. So, Aaron Rodgers, what do? You don't want, sometimes you don't want to be the last person, at the kettle because then you have to just accept with whatever you have. But then again, you don't want to be too gullible and be the first, accept the first person offer that you come across the plate. But right now, besides the draft picks, which some teams are already elected to go down that route, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, two of the top quarterbacks total. And if you're not in the conversation of at least throwing Aaron Rodgers or throwing Tom Brady an offer, even if you get rejected right away, then you at least, then I think you're crazy. You have to, I think anyone who needs a quarterback, and I want to say about a solid dozen teams right now could use a better quarterback, has to be contacting Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and say, hey, listen, we're interested in you. What are your possibilities of considering that this is a team you could be playing for next season? And top teams right now where I think will make vast improvement, especially in Aaron Rodgers' case, has to be two teams, in my opinion. Maybe, you know what? I'm going to say 4 teams, in my opinion. One, I kind of disagree with, but I could see it happening too. That would be the New York Jets. Well, the New York Jets, you know, yeah, they got Zach Wilson, but they started off great last year. Then they kind of fell down. Okay. With Aaron Rodgers and what the Jets are trying to do, I think that would elevate them to another 3 to 5 games on their season. Okay. A playoff spot, that's what they're looking for. But the way I see it is that you do start considering, hey, if you go move to the Jets, the last thing you want to do is follow the path of Brett Favre, because the one thing I was disappointed in is how Brett Favre moved to Minnesota and to New York and played for these other two teams after he had a rich, you know, Hall of Fame career with Green Bay. And I get it, you know, there's reasons behind it, but Brett Favre decided to take those actions. I feel like kind of tarnished a little bit of his career, just like when The Undertaker probably should have retired a couple years back and had, you know, took this long to actually retire. So, you know, I'm keeping New York and the Jets in my back pocket, but I'm not ruling them out, but I'm not really my favorite team to go for. You got another team that I'm not really necessarily favorite in are the Washington Commanders. They need a quarterback, and I think Aaron Rodgers will do well. I think he has his number against, you know, Washington played a solid football throughout the majority of the season. They kind of did stumble apart at the end, but that's because they didn't get over the hump. Adding Rodgers to that mix puts him in the wild card conversation. Can Aaron Rodgers beat Jalen Hurts? Sure thing. Can Aaron Rodgers beat Dak Prescott? Sure thing. Can Aaron Rodgers beat, you know, Daniel Jones? Absolutely. So I think, you know, Washington Commanders could be a definite, you know, landing spot for Aaron Rodgers. Now, they threw out there the idea that Tennessee could be a new landing spot. And I don't know the direction that Tennessee wants to go on down. I don't see Aaron Rodgers going down there to Tennessee and playing for the Titans. But I at the same time, I can see it. Now, I want to remind you, because I know I've been mentioning NFC and AFC teams around the horn, that if Green Bay is going to trade him and they're going to come up with an agreement, they're not trading him to an NFC team. They do want him in the AFC, which means I feel like there's 2 teams on the top of my list, which one team I also don't see working out, and that's the New England Patriots. New England Patriots are looking for a quarterback. Do you see Bill Belichick and Aaron Rodgers working together? There's just something about these two guys that maybe they can, and especially bringing back Bill O'Brien to the offensive coordinator side of things, that you can see Aaron Rodgers going to New England. But I feel like, and so for some reason, it makes completely sense because you got front runners up there. You got guys that are looking to get attention. And absolutely, I mean, you know, New England was the last team knocked out of the playoffs come week 18. I could definitely see Aaron Rodgers play for New England, but you're still playing in the weather predicament that you're playing at Lambeau. So, I mean, okay, I'm putting a needle. New England, I do see Aaron Rodgers playing for Bill Belichick, Bill O'Brien up there. I think that New England can make a run. As a matter of fact, can be a new contingency. I also see you talk about making, but my final team here is making the AFC West just that much more dangerous. Derek Carr would be a great, guy, Las Vegas. I don't think that they need to trade him, but Raiders has kind of been on the radar. And I know that there's been works about Aaron Rodgers going to the West Coast. And right now there's limited teams that Aaron Rodgers could go to. I don't see San Francisco. That I think right now, especially seeing after Brock Purdy and what he's capable of doing, you kind of move on from San Francisco because they also got Trey Lance. Seattle, maybe, but that's an NFC team. And then you look down to maybe the Rams, which I don't think Green Bay's given Rodgers, the Rams Rodgers. So the Raiders are kind of the most only ideal team that you could look for. They're trying to get rid of Derek Carr and they need a quarterback. So I feel like that's a perfect combination for these two guys, for these two scenarios, is Aaron Rodgers going to Las Vegas. But we've seen this again. We've heard about this time and time again. We've even heard about Tom Brady wanting to go to the West Coast, and we've seen him with Tampa Bay. And that is just another thing that it's hard to see it happen until it's in the dotted lines and you see the breaking news. But you guys got to remember that a lot of this is not going to happen until the Super Bowl is over with, which is in 3 weeks. So as we open and unfold this case and the news and what Green Bay is capable and or willing to do and what Aaron Rodgers wants to do, he has 3 options. He can either stay with Green Bay if Green Bay wants him. He can retire, which is always an option. Or if he finds the right place with the right money, then he could definitely head on out to a different team. But like I mentioned, also, if you're Aaron Rodgers or you're even Tampa Bay, I highly suggest going to a team that has an offensive line, receivers that you could throw to, a good fan base, with good conditions, good stadium, and also good defense, because you want to win another championship. And the only way you're going to do that is if you could cross those things off your bucket list. So don't go to a place that makes you just as much terrible. All right, another episode in and out of the throw-in. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you guys tomorrow morning talking about some sports. AEW's tonight. Don't forget Mark Briscoe, one half of the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, will take on Jay Lethal in honorary celebration of the recent late passing of Jay Briscoe last week. So much more still to come. Let's come back tomorrow, wrap up a great week here. Thank you guys for tuning into the Throne right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.